accusations, denials, and even rocks are flying in the Hardesty Gonzalez race. This is Jo Ann Hardesty, Rene Gonzalez. They are two candidates for city council position down in Portland, Oregon. They are both Democrats, but because one is campaigning on a little bit more of a law and order type platform, the other candidate, which is Jo Ann Hardesty, who was very, very excited about the whole Black Lives Matter and Antifa, just hammering on Portland as a city, was all behind that, and not so much the police, just wasn't on board with anything pro-police. So we've got this race where it's gotten so bad that a far leftist like Jo Ann Hardesty is basically accusing Gonzalez of being a Republican, to the point where the non-Republican, where the Democrat, and it's nonpartisan race in Oregon, right? In Portland City Council, it's nonpartisan. Hardesty is literally accusing Gonzalez of being a Republican because he's supporting things to shore up public safety. If that doesn't tell you what you need to know right there, yeah, that is what you need to know. Let's get into it. Let's take a little look-see. And so recently, a rock got thrown through Rene Gonzalez, the Republican / moderate Democrat's office. And it's not funny, but it's kind of like, okay, yeah, in Portland, that doesn't surprise me at all. They had one of these call to action type things by, all the activists down in Portland, and somebody threw a rock through the window of the campaign headquarters. It doesn't surprise me at all, because that's just kind of how Portland is. Because nothing says progress like, hurling a rock through somebody's window. But, you do the same thing down in California for Pelosi, and yeah, you've got everybody going, oh, isn't that horrible? That's horrible and awful and atrocious. Can't believe the violence. Oh, it's terrible and horrible. That kind of stuff's going on in California all the time. This kind of stuff's going on all the time in Portland too. It's just that you don't normally see it in political campaigns like this. And yet we are. It's quite disturbing, right? It's kind of alarming, like, what's going on here? This is wild. All right, so let's get into it. Accusations and denials continue to fly in the Portland City Council race between incumbent Jo Ann Hardesty and challenger Rene Gonzalez after Gonzalez campaign headquarters was vandalized for the second time in a month. There is nothing that is leading anybody to believe that Hardesty is behind this. No. But, people throwing rocks through Gonzalez window, they are not Republicans. Let's put it that way. They are not Republicans. I think we can safely say that. The Gonzalez campaign said recent comments from Hardesty made calling his staff Republicans has incited political violence towards them. Okay, reasonably, yes, you've got political violence towards you, but I think it's because of your stand on the whole policing issue. I think that's what it is. And we'll get to it, but Hardesty basically outlines this with some pretty concise statements. The Gonzalez campaign sent Hardesty's office a cease-and-desist letter about her comments on his staffers and his ideology. Hey, stop saying we're Republicans. We are Democrats. We are registered Democrats. What the F is your problem? That's literally what they're saying. They're sending a cease and desist. I don't know if you've ever got one of those, but it's basically just a legal demand. Shut the F up over these issues. That's what it says. And you know what? In this case, I think a cease and desist order is correct, because she is literally, Hardesty, the left-wing nut job, Hardesty is literally saying, they're pro-police, therefore they must be Republicans. Got to be the awful R word, right? Hardesty doubled down on Monday and said his comments reflected a Republican perspective. So if you are saying something about, well, you know what? It's public safety is kind of a concern of mine. That means you're automatically Republican. And that is one of the fallacies that I believe are going to come back to bite the Democrats in the rear end. And I think a lot of Democrats, more moderate Democrats, folks that are just more reasonable, and they are out there. They are out there. I think they're kind of looking over their shoulder going, all that rhetoric about defund the police and all that crazy stuff coming out of the summer of 2020, and all these politicians that went down that road and believed that too. I think this is going to haunt us come these, midterm elections here in a week or so. I think these are going to haunt us. And I believe that is correct because folks that are campaigning on a public safety platform where they are talking about more police, they're talking about getting a tougher stance on crime, they are the ones that are consistently doing better in the polls, aren't they? Is there a pattern there? Do we see a pattern emerging? His comments, Jo Ann Hardesty said, are consistent with a Republican ideology. Well, that's where the break happens. Because you got all these nut jobs on the far left. And there's nut jobs on the far right, obviously. There's nut jobs on both sides. But the ones on the far left have been just screaming about these issues forever. And you know what? In today's political climate, where there's an actual rise in crime, you're going to have a hard time trying to get somebody elected who is still on that defund the police, that whole bandwidth. That's kind of a day late, dollar short. We're not going there. So what she's saying is, hey, he sounds like a Republican. Well, maybe he's a middle of the road. Maybe he's a moderate Democrat who is literally concerned for his constituent safety, his potential constituent safety. Could that possibly be a thing? Are there Democrats out there who are, worried about inflation, who are worried about public safety? Yes, there are. And those are the ones that I believe are going to vote in numbers like we have not seen before. And when we see these races, we'll go, well, yeah, that makes sense. That absolutely makes sense. I get it. And so I think you're going to see some crazy races, stuff that is close now. Then when it comes down to it, they're not going to be close races. I think the polls are not reflecting a bunch of people who are kind of like the whole Trump deal in 2016. People weren't willing to say they were going to vote for Trump. It only happened at the election because remember Hillary Clinton was lock her up. Remember that? Hillary Clinton was, by all the polls, it was just supposed to be a cakewalk. It was supposed to be an after mention, It's just like, all right, we're doing that silly election thing now. We all know Hillary's going to win. And then Trump comes out of nowhere. People want to say, we knew he was going to do it. Yeah, but the optics of Trump winning wasn't very clear. And on that election night, November the 8th, 2016, that was wild. I've talked about this a bunch. I had just flown into Maui because it's my birthday and I like to celebrate there. Don't seem to be doing that in recent years, but what a fun place to fly into because it's 3 hours behind. And so I could fly to Maui and just basically stay up all night and watch everything that happened and still get to bed at a decent hour. It was awesome. So we've got this person, Jo Ann Hardesty, saying, wow, he's concerned about stuff that Republicans are concerned about, so he must be a Republican. That's literally what she's saying. And so, her opponent is saying, no, shut the F up. Cease and desist. That's literally what this guy has had to do because Hardesty she's not, she's missing some sections of reality. Late on Saturday night, a large rock was thrown through the windows of the Gonzalez headquarters, causing an estimated $8,000 in damage. Portland Police Bureau told KOIN 6 News that there are no suspects and no confirmed motive, but investigators said they're investigating the possibility of a connection between the direct action event and that campaign office vandalism. It's probably Antifa, right? Let's be honest. It's Antifa. And they're on Hardesty's side way more than they are a moderate Democrat who's talking about, yeah, we need some more police. So police are going to be shorthanded at least for another 18 months is the information I'm getting. At least another 18 months. Like they're not able to put up the numbers of officers for all the scheduling that they need to. They're going to have to rely on overtime, and they're going to have to rely upon heavy overtime to get there, which is not the way that you want to run your police department. But that's how Oregon is doing it, because you've got nut jobs like Hardesty who have made Portland a city where nobody wants to be a cop. So you got that. And that is being reflected in these elections. And I believe it'll, Hardesty is just going to get crushed in this election. Crushed. I mean, she's done such a bad job that the majority of Portland folks, even if they voted for her the first time around, they're kind of like, yeah, no, can't do it. No, siree, not a go. I'm a Biden Democrat. Her statements are false. Gonzalez told KOIN 6 News. I mean, it doesn't get any more bold than that, right? I voted for Biden. I like Biden. And this is what we're doing. As the rhetoric goes up and we see acts of violence, we felt the need to calm things down. These are the facts. This is who we are, and let Portlanders decide. And they're deciding, and they are not deciding in Jo Ann Hardesty's direction. She's just going to get absolutely flattened. Hardesty said her comments are not responsible for any vandalism at the Gonzalez headquarters. Okay, whatever. We'll give you that. Don't really care. But you know what? You are responsible because you're claiming these guys are Republicans. And they're not. They're Democrats. You couldn't even get that right. How do you F that up? Literally, if you're a politician, how do you F that up? Let's see. Hey, let's just go online and we'll just take a quick peeky peek. Oh, he's registered as a Democrat. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Let me just say that as the first Black woman to serve on Portland City Council, I certainly understand the fear that Mr. Gonzalez and his team are experiencing, but I in no way had anything to do with that, she said. I've always been a student of Dr. Martin Luther King, nonviolent direct action, my entire adult life. That's been who I am. Well, Black Lives Matter, they proclaimed a lot of affection towards Dr. Martin Luther King, and they caused, $2 billion of insured damage and then $5 billion of total damage to the United States. And they were big fans of Dr. Martin Luther King too. But, some of those protests, they went from, peaceful to not so much. Gonzalez said the political extremism has gotten worse in Portland recently, citing vandalism to the homes of Mayor Ted Wheeler and Commissioner Dan Ryan. Let's just be honest. Portland is out of control. Portland's out of control. It's on its own trajectory. It's on its own pathway. I think this has really accelerated the last couple of years, he said. Like everyday Portlanders, we have to clean up the mess and get on with our lives. And yet, having a tough time getting on with their lives, like the downtown core and the suburbs, the amount of shootings and stolen vehicles, just deterioration of, Portland and its suburbs in general, the drugs. On Sunday, campaign of Portland City Mayor Council candidate Rene Gonzalez sent a cease-and-desist letter to Jo Ann Hardesty over allegations of patently false libelous statements. A mailer sent out to Portlanders last week by Hardesty's campaign said Gonzalez breaks the law. Okay, yeah, but you're not offering any proof, so we're just going to set that one aside because we know that Hardesty says a bunch of stuff that isn't true. I mean, just says stuff and then can't understand when people are like, yeah, cease and desist. Here you go. This is ridiculous. This is from a candidate who has shown he will say and do anything to advance his agenda, just as he did by promoting 17 anti-gay, anti-choice candidates for school board whose victories will do harm. So we get stuck in some of the small details that, yeah. So this article basically goes on to say, hey, even though this guy supports the police, it doesn't mean he's a Republican. And so Gonzalez or Hardesty, she basically says, hey, if he walks like a duck and talks like a duck, he's probably a duck. And that's where this whole thing just goes sideways. Not everybody that is concerned with public safety, with if their wife's going to make it home from work or not, whether they can go walking up and down a street, and go trick-or-treating without getting assaulted, whether they can go into their downtown core and do a little shopping like you tend to do. Because you've got certain stores in your downtown that you don't find elsewhere, right? That's where those stores go there. Not everybody that's concerned about that is necessarily a Republican. And yet, with everything that went on during the summer of 2020 and subsequently since then, that's what you're led to believe. Only Democrats don't really believe in that. We believe in only police reform. Well, that's not true. And this is a really good example of that if somebody is talking about more of a pro-police platform, hey, Portland isn't looking great. Maybe we should get some more cops. That's literally what Gonzalez is saying. So does that sound like something a Republican would say? Yes, but it also sounds like something that a more reasonable person would say. Reasonable people don't go down this road of defund the police, just send out social workers, it'll all be fine. What could possibly go wrong? Reasonable people kind of sit back and go, okay, yeah, some of the things that the police have done clearly don't need those. All right. If you want to work on police reform, then, let's get some more money and we'll do the training thing and we'll make that happen. I personally tend to believe that a lot of the reform has already taken place, that you do have a lot of these instances that happen, the one-off, and then people just go crazy. But you're going to continue to have that kind of no matter what. You know what I mean? You're going to have situations that come up, and you can't always be blaming the police for these crazy instances. But we just went down this road for, the last couple of years where we just really focused on a couple of cases, really focused on that, but didn't focus on policing in general and all the good things that police are doing out there serving their communities. So now you've got a middle of the road Democrat who is saying, hey, you know what? Things aren't looking great in Portland. This is what I want to do. And he literally just went down the ticker list of, things that can be done that are going to improve public safety in a city like Portland. Interesting. So that whole narrative and structure has changed. And what's crazy is that somebody like Hardesty doesn't really get that shift taking place because she's still thinking, well, all the Democrats, we hate police. We don't like police at all. And that's just not the case. They're, vast swaths of Democrats are like, yeah, I don't think defunding the police is the greatest idea at all. In fact, many of the mayors of these Democrat cities, they knew damn well what was going to happen if you defunded the police. Yeah, crime stats are going to go up. And that's not a good look on my watch as mayor. That's what they're thinking. Oh, yeah, not that. Okay, let's not do that. And Mayor Ted and Mayor Jenny Durkin in Seattle were kind of prime examples. But Mayor Ted initially, he was there just shoulder to shoulder, buddy to buddy with Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And that really, really impacted him. And it's impacted Portland as well because people don't know whether they're coming or going. But eventually Mayor Ted was like, yeah, maybe defunding the police isn't the greatest concept in the world. He wanted to be buddy-buddy and be shoulder to shoulder with them at the mostly peaceful protests that were actually in reality riots, violent riots. He wanted to support that way. But then he knew when it came right down to the data and the science. Yeah. We don't even talk about those things ever in the same breath anymore, do we? He knew based on the data, this isn't going to be a good look. If we defund the police and we have even less police than we do now, things are really going to take off in the wrong direction. And for Portland, they did, unfortunately. And so that's why you've got Democrats campaigning on what looks like a, walks like a duck, talks like a duck, must be a duck type concept. when in reality, they're just concerned, like everybody else is, for their overall safety in a community like Portland that has had these left-wing nut jobs leave their imprint in a really, really negative way. So that's where we sit. Hardesty wants to talk about how she's made a big difference, and she's really helped the communities that she said that she would. She's going to lose this race pretty badly. And I think most people in Portland don't have a positive connotation of her time in office. So from that standpoint, everybody's got their different perspective, but the vast majority of people are saying Hardesty's got to go. We need to get anybody in there who's going to be a little bit more pro-police, who's going to be a little bit more pro-public safety. That's the way I see it on this one. I think a lot of these elections you're going to see go the same way, not necessarily as drastically as this one, but you're going to see a lot of folks who are far more concerned about inflation, the economy, and public safety than they are on what happened to Paul Pelosi and, the abortion deal. I honestly think that's kind of the way that things are headed. Or January 6th. We're still going on about that years later. Still going on about that. Now, I think the majority of Americans are like, yeah, I got bills to pay. I got bills to pay. That story, that's a couple of years old. Well, they convicted him. All right. They convicted the other 749 of those dudes too, right? So how are we going to pay those bills? Yeah. Am I going to have a job next month? Inflation, wildly out of control. What's the dealio there? We were told that it was, it was just going to be fleeting. It was going to be transitory. Didn't happen that way, did it? And that's why I think a lot of those politicians are going to get flushed out this election cycle. And I think so many of these middle of the road Democrats are going to be like, when they're filling out their ballot, I can't believe I'm doing this, but good Lord, that guy's got an R by his name. Fill it out, bundle it up, send it on in. I think you're going to see that. It's my opinion. I don't know, but I think I'm right. Thanks for being here. We'll catch up on the next one. Talk then. Bye for now.